Good evening, everyone.
How's everybody doing?
What's happening? Hello, JJ.
Hi, Matt. Hi, Tom.
JJ Flizanes. Did I get that right? I want to always make sure that, because it's an interesting last name looking. When you read it, you're like, okay, I'm pretty sure I got this right, but gotta ask.
Yep, you
Right?
do well.
Great. Cool. Well, thank you for coming on. I'm excited to kind of get going. But before we kind of just want to get rolling by asking you, a little bit about yourself, how you got here, and just kind of get us into it, and let's see where it goes.
Okay, I can do this in a couple different sound bites for you. So my name is JJ Flizanes. I'm an empowerment strategist. I was a personal trainer for 25 years. So when it comes to health hacking, I'm right there with you. I know all about all kinds of stuff in that department. My personal training career led me to ask deeper questions. Well, I was already a spiritual and emotional person before all this, but I started asking different questions about pains and why someone couldn't fix a certain part of their body. And it led to the cross between just the physical and then the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and of course, epigenetic and quantum physics. So I blended all the worlds together.
Yeah.
I blended all those things together and launched Empowerment Strategist. Been a podcaster for 10 years, over 10 years, have a network of my own called Empowering Minds Network. I have developed something called the Core Wound Map. It is based on the imago therapy world of looking at core wounds within a couple's therapy situation. And I just actually, as of the recording of this yesterday, had a conversation with Harville Hendricks, who created imago therapy and wrote a million books, and explained my core wound map to him and asked him if he'd write the foreword to my next book. So he said he'd be honored, and I'm off to the races.
Awesome. There you go.
So thank you. Thank you.
So I don't have the amount of time required to go through every one of those things because I want to dig in on a 5-hour show on like all of those. So we're going to have to pare it down a little bit.
No problem.
Look, our audience drops off at 45 minutes.
It's funny. I'm deeply involved in a quantum computer company right now. And when you said all that, it's like when you look at all of the quantum level stuff, and, we've used this a lot in the world, right? Like quantum entanglement with other things in the universe and spirit families and all this other, universal energy. Talked about it a million times, but it's really weird space in human evolution where we can now put a computer against that same level of existence. And so there could be 50 podcasts on this topic alone.
I love to just, whatever is interesting to you, as a podcast coach, another aspect, I tell people to do the show you want to listen to. Talk about what you want to talk about.
So what I love about your story is that it's actually not related to any one of your stories. It's kind of the story that wrote all those stories, right? Which is your sort of breadth, right? And I love that about you. And I think that was one of the things that I took away from our conversation, where I was like, yeah, you know what? This is another person who thinks a lot like Tom and I, like ultra wide, deep in some areas, less deep in others, but like there's a way to connect the world as a whole to pretty much anything, right? And that's kind of what I love. But so is that true? First of all, it seems like I was right, but maybe I'm not. And if so, how did that influence how you get into all these things? Because there's a lot of dimensions to what you're talking about here.
So where are you guys in the world of astrology? Are you the we think it's a bunch of BS?
Oh man,
it depends on the day.
Yeah.
Wait, it's Mercury in retrograde because I have a different opinion then.
Yeah. Today
it's
for
not.
me, it's I like it as a curiosity, but to say I take it too seriously would really be overselling it. Yeah, I do not.
I had somebody once, they're like, of course, you're a Capricorn. And I was like, no, I just really don't like that.
Yeah.
Like whatever it was, I'm like, no, that seems dumb to me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about astrology as a whole. It was literally like, no, you're a Capricorn. Of course you're going to do that.
I've been told a million times that I'm a quintessential Cancer, and best I could tell, it means I'm a whiny bitch. Like that's kind of like that's kind of like that's sort of like the most I could take away from that. So I'm like, all right, look, maybe that's true, maybe it's not, but I don't know.
Look, JJ, we're not going to be offensive, I promise. But
yeah,
it's going to be funny.
Literally, I'm not, even though some people would probably argue who listen to my show, I don't really care what everybody believes. I talk about what I believe and what I work with, and if you agree with it, cool. And if you don't, you can go to someone else's show. Like, so it's not.
I also think that, like, as long as you have a framework that you're operating from, and it seems to work for you, then that's okay.
Well, let's follow the bouncing ball. Where does that go? Like, so let's say I was like, hell yeah, astrology all the way. What would have been next?
So you're gonna be like, holy shit, where's she going with this?
No,
sorry if can I swear on this show? Okay.
My God, it's fucking called Irreverent Health.
Yeah, excellent. All right, just checking. All right, well, here's the super woo woo for anyone. And again, if no one knows what I'm talking about, it's not gonna mean anything.
You don't even know. I did a demon possession treatment the other day in the clinic. So
okay, well there you go. So you asked me how, sort of, if that was accurate about how you described me, and I'm going to say yes, because my Mercury's is in Aquarius. Okay, so what that means is that Aquarians have this sort of big picture thinking, and they're usually able to see sort of trends that are coming and happening. And I also have the ability, one of my superpowers is to be able to pick and choose and connect dots of things that don't necessarily connect and find the through line. So because of that, it is a wide breadth of being interested in health and relationships and quantum physics and spirituality and everything that is life, really, to me, and even business. All of it kind of connects in some ways. And my journey has been like getting deeper and deeper and deeper, and I'm very curious. I ask a lot of questions. That also is many, many Sag planets. I'm curious, and I always have been. I've always asked why. And if someone doesn't have a good answer for me, then I keep searching until I find a good answer that resonates with me. And then I go, okay, cool, I can accept that. I believe that. And then I move on. So I've just been interested in my own self-development and care from the time I can remember, and curious. So put those two things together, and you have that I choose professions and subject matters that directly relate to me, that affect me. And then I learn, and I want to help others do the same or glean what I've gotten from whatever I'm doing.
Matt and I were told we're just ADHD.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But, the guy that founded TED Talk said you learn what you like, right? So that's what you're going to resonate to. That's what you're going to naturally have affinity for. And that's what you're going to, like, take to heart and run with.
For a long time, I agree with you completely. For a long time, especially after sort of moving from personal training, and I stayed so long because I'm really good at it. When I finally actually learned science, because my brain doesn't work like memorization. I did well in school, but I wasn't like that nerdy science person. I was more of the creative person. I was more of the visual person. I did a lot of performing arts and visual arts. So I went to an acting class. Was in acting school, and in New York City in a Tisch school, I actually learned more about science and religion and history than I ever had sitting in high school, because it made it real. It made it something I could see. So moving into personal training, and when I kind of realized I had a left brain, and I'm like, oh my God, I understand this. I can blend this together. It means something to me. I started to use that. Oh my God, I'm awake now. I have this right brain that I know is very active, and now my left brain can actually make sense of science. I stayed a long time because of that blend, that sort of right-left brain blend in the personal training, in the physical fitness, I've worked with functional medicine doctors for 25 years, both in an office as well as on my show. I work with all kinds of integrative oncologists. Like, I just ask all of the people who are on cutting edge information and challenging the status quo of Western medicine and anything that we think that's been told to us by doctors for 30 years. I challenge all of it because, again, unless I see how it works, I want to know more. I want you to make sense of it to me in all these different realms and all these different frameworks. So yes, you're correct in that I see a lot of different connections and a lot of different ways for people to improve, and a lot of ways for me to improve, from my health to my relationships to my financial to whatever. And I've addressed that through learning different sciences, and then sort of I've been in an evolution. I've been evolving, and so here we are. I am working deeply with people's core wound patterns, and I think I know it affects all parts of their being, from their relationships to their health.
And it's funny the way you laid that out, because I think so much of it echoes, Tom, stuff you and I talk about all the time. It's like you have a conversation with 8 people, and then you have a conversation with that 9th one, and you're like, okay, those 8 people are all kind of seeing the world kind of as they're
same
told.
way. Yeah.
to see the world. And then there's this one person who just sees through all that stuff and sees around a lot of the other stuff and is like, you know what? I'm kind of on a different path because of this information that I've taken in and how I take it in. And it really, it's like the older I get, the more I realize that like people we have on this show, people like myself and for sure, I'm like almost seeking out to the exclusion of everything else, that type of path, because it is sort of not just highly personal for any one of us, but like it also is what everybody else around us wants to ask you and doesn't have the articulation to ask. Because as soon as you start telling them about it, they're like, yes, that. And now all of a sudden you're helping another person and you're like, well, I'm only helping you because of my deep interest in this.
Yeah.
You know, and now I'm helping you and now you're going to go help some. It's just a really cool thing to watch because we're all very similar, right? They all want to think like you, JJ, like everybody would if they could, but they're at a minimum, when they hear what you're saying, they're like, I couldn't think of the words, but that's it. That what she said.
I also think that the like a core thing that I'm hearing is like, okay, that's great, but why? You know, and if the why is not credible, well, then the whole argument's discredited, and then you move on to a different approach, and that leads you down a pretty deep rabbit hole sometimes.
It started when I was getting divorced.
Huh.
And my ex-husband and I'd said the last ditch effort was to go to imagotherapy. I'd already been doing my show at that point so that was 2017. So I'd already been doing my show for 3 years. And I had learned a lot, and I'd basically used my show to try to save my marriage. I had on all kinds of people too, because I knew he wouldn't hear it from me. And I thought, well, maybe you'll hear it from somebody else. So I'll bring on other people to say what I want you to know or learn. And it did work to some degree. But anyway, we get to this place. We're in this couples therapy. It's imagotherapy. I finally wanted to do it forever, but I waited to have a partner who'd want to do it with me. And of course, it's too late by this point. But we do this exercise. It's a core wound exercise. Oh, he was already 1.5 feet out the door. The only reason why he did it was to say that he did it. He wasn't actually looking to save the marriage or to change. But he did it. And this core wound exercise answered so many questions for me. It became so clear. It was a life changer. This one exercise. And he didn't even finish his. So we couldn't even like do the real work together as a couple, but it didn't matter because it was so transformative to me. It answered so many questions that I said to the therapist, and I told this to Harville yesterday. I said, why isn't every single person in therapy everywhere doing this before they get into therapy? Because it literally, that's why I call it a map. I've created a core wound map because it's like when you get in the car and you want to drive somewhere you've never been before. Yes, now we have GPS on your phone, but literally you needed a map. You needed to follow something to show you where to go or have choices of routes. I can go this route. I can go that route. But this map, when people go to therapy, it's, if you have a traditional talk therapist, you're being asked how you feel and why you're there. And then you talk about whatever you're droning on about that you're upset about. And the traditional therapist says to you, that's terrible. How do you feel about that? And there's no responsibility given to the person. So there's years and years and years wasted telling stories that never move the needle for you as a person growing into taking responsibility for where you are and what you've attracted and doing anything about it and actually making big change. Now, if you're listening to me and you have a therapist you love, or you are a therapist and you help people become different in the same situation, that's my quote, healing is when you're different in the same situation, then you're doing a great job. But there is a lot of traditional talk therapists out there. And when I started my show and I started offering it's like sessions, people would come and they'd have 2 sessions and be like, oh my God, I'm so excited. I'm just in a different place. I feel so good about that. And I'm so excited. And I've gotten more out of these 2 sessions. And I've been in therapy for 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. And I was like, great, because we're actually creating a structure. And you guys as men would appreciate this. I think that most men hate therapy because there's no structure. Just go in and you're just told.
Therapy.
Yeah, I fucking love therapy, man. Are you
therapy.
serious?
Yeah,
no,
okay,
no,
I fucking cry for an hour and be like, I don't know what's
I'm
wrong
all into
with me.
therapy.
I've
been doing it since college.
The minority.
Every couple of years, I'll go in for a little bit of a stint, get a little refresher course, and then, then I bail when it feels natural. But yeah, I love it, man.
I normally go like, just hear me out. Am I fucking nuts here?
Yeah.
like, am I seeing this wrong?
You know what's
the therapist? Yes.
You know what's funny though is the more times I go in for these rounds, the less I feel like I need them because like they always teach you a thing to conquer the thing, that you're in the middle of. And I'm not getting any younger. I've done this a couple times now. So like the big things that I'm likely to relapse into, I already have like a template for that I know works.
Some coping structure.
And so I'm kind of like, all right, I'm feeling like it might be time. And then all of a sudden I'm like, well, why don't I just try the thing first? And then it works. I'm like, all right, cool. I guess we can punt this a little bit longer. Like, I mean, so.
That's
but
great.
You got to be paying attention to do that. Yeah, yeah.
Well, you have to have a tool. And there are a lot of people that aren't given tools. They aren't taught how to fish. They're been given the fish, but they're not taught to fish. So, and it only happened so many times that I finally said, okay, I have to claim this, because so many people were not getting what they wanted out of it. They didn't feel any better. They didn't feel any differently. So the fact that you guys is great. But I also know from past experience with my ex-husband and with other relationships, guys felt like, I mean, even in my current relationship, and some of you too, I think both of you have met Doug, there's a certain, like, if you're not structuring this for me, if I don't know where I'm going, then I don't know why I'm here. Because I could have this conversation with anybody and not pay them. How about, and I'm not learning anything new. I'm not seeing it in a different way. I'm just regurgitating to tell you who I am, and you may reflect some things back to me, and maybe they're interesting, but I don't know they're going to make the major changes that I'm here to make. And so I think there's a structure. I think there's an unfortunate overlying, and part of it's legal, which I understand, in the traditional talk therapy model. Again, not all people are using just traditional talk therapy. If you're using hypnosis or EMDR or EFT or many, and you're teaching your clients things, you're teaching them new ways to look at things. Now we're on to something, but so many people go in and don't really ever learn and always are the victim. It's always there. Everyone else is bad and they're victimized. And like, that's not going to fly. You're never going to be happy and feel good about yourself or feel empowered if you feel like the world is against you and your family doesn't listen to you and your husband doesn't appreciate you and your wife doesn't appreciate you. Like, it's just a lose-lose.
No, for sure. But like, I also, I mean, I guess the people that we associate with, like on this show for sure, are all in these healing modes, right? So, and
most of them are really like wounded healer, where they've gone through it themselves, you know.
And one thing that it's illuminated, like more than anything else, is I think the other reason why I might be leaning off of therapy is because now there's like 500 other things that I've gotten tool sets on, like EFT.
Amazing.
We went and found somebody to come on the show because I loved it so much, but it was introduced to me without my knowledge. I swear, like somebody was like, "Hey, would you meet with this woman?" You know, and I did, and she did an EFT thing on me, and like 2 weeks later, we had a follow up, and I got her. I was like, "What the hell did you do to me?" Like, you know, and she's laughing. She's like, "What happened?" And I said, everything just sort of went away. Like it was just like, it was a magic eraser for this problem I was having. And so now, you know, if you know that exists, it's easy to do. I mean, just tap yourself and, you know, do a mantra and you're kind of like mostly there. But you have to be taught how to do that. Like, and you have to be open to like tapping yourself in the face, which is a little weird from anybody.
I also think that's part of JJ's point there. It's like you need the tool. You need to be shown how to use the tool, and then you actually have to incorporate that, right? You know, I think she's absolutely right about some therapy where it's like, you know, I'm not saying therapists say this, but I mean, imagine coming in the same week and having the person say the exact same things as the client, as the patient there. Why aren't you changing? We've talked about this. Well, what is that trigger? What is that thing that I'm supposed to do to create that change? And that's why EFT and EMDR and it's a physical fucking trigger,
right?
You know,
right. And when you and I talked, Matt, originally about some of the sort of health hack like integrations of what I'm doing, I started to work with a lot of cancer patients a couple of years ago because cancer patients generally have lots of trauma and emotional sort of set points that create disease. And I'm not saying that the emotions are the only piece, but they're a huge piece that get missed all of the time. And I've seen it in my own clients who've had literally no other changes except emotional breakthroughs and their whole blood work changes that they're in. Yeah. And so I've been able to sort of prove by looking at, and I'm not trying to prove it. I know it works. I don't care, but someone else likes to see the data. I'm like, okay, great. You want to see the data? Like I appreciate Radical Remission and Dr. Kelly Turner for putting that together. But, you know, when I read it, I'm like, yeah, I know, because this is sort of common sense to me, but it's something that she decided to study and have data on, which is important because it helps to validate for lots of people in a scientific way. that this is real, that the 10 points of radical remission, 7 of them are mental, emotional, and spiritual. So, hello, this isn't about like people just radically, getting remission from cancer and healing their cancer. And it wasn't physical. It was emotional, mental, and spiritual. So to me, this is the underlying most important health hack we have, because if you do not fix what drives you, if you do not fix what emotional energy you sit in daily, the way that you look at the world, the way you interpret things, because the body won't heal if it's not in alignment and in a positive state. If you're in a stressful state, or you feel scarcity, or you feel anger, your body can't heal in that. That's not, it's that the body is in fight or flight. It has to be in a parasympathetic state, which is relaxed. Relaxed means happy. Relaxed means grounded. Relaxed means focused. Relaxed means trusting. And the two, working with Dr. Bruce Lipton for a couple of years now, he talks about in Biology of Belief and in every other book he's written, that there's only 2 beliefs, that there are 2 beliefs, and there are only 2 beliefs that you have to have in order to heal. And that is, you have to trust, you have to feel safe in the world and safe in your body. You have to feel safe, and you have to love yourself. And he has people do muscle testing to see if they can say it, but is it accurate? Do they actually mean it? And most people think they mean it, but they'll subconsciously test out of it. And also, you can also see by the way people act in the world and how they talk to themselves that they don't believe that. So, we have an epidemic of we want to get real complicated, when some of the biggest ways we can heal is super simple. Yes, the structures to get there and the therapies to get there, and the road might not be so easy, and it might not be too short, but it's the idea that how we heal is through having emotional stability, love, and feeling safe in the world.
Yeah, and I think you and I might have talked about the IFS practitioner who cured stage 4 cancer by basically, parts therapy it out. And I originally thought that was a little crazy sounding, mostly because I've got a really wide belief path. I really wide. You could take me down a path for miles before I call bullshit on it. And I'm fine to do it, but I also like the verification part, right? I'm like a trust but verify kind of guy. So when somebody like you comes at it, well, and all the people you mentioned, that comes at it with some quantitative evidence, it's always better, right? It's always kind of cool to hear that, because you're like, yeah, it makes sense. I agree with you. Somebody said the other day, did you know vegetable oil causes cancer? I'm like, well, yeah. They're like, but did you know the FDA just came out? I said, oh, I didn't even know that. But I thought you asked if I knew.
If you were aware of that was true.
I was like, I'm very aware that that's true, having nothing whatsoever to do with the FDA or anything that they have officially written. And they looked at me like I was insane. What kind of, you obviously don't know. You're just like a crazy internet meme guy. And I'm like, no, because I've known
the research
this for
has
years.
Been there for a while, yeah,
for years and years and years. This is just literally common sense. All the FDA was justification. That's it. There's nothing, quantifiable justification, I should say. Yeah.
Right. Died number 3, Florida in the water. Oh, we can go on and on. How many
things
that we all know are causing cancer that are completely legal and our country puts in our food.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the next interpretation of this looks like, because I think there's a time when I've said too that it's going to be, there's a 50% chance that it gets really better, and there's a 50% chance that it's infinitely worse.
I think it's going to be infinitely worse, because it doesn't
it's
matter
hard to tell
what anybody believes. It's going to be whatever money moves things.
Yeah, and
I will fight
we'll see.
people on that.
Yeah. Well, at least I have some hope. I will be okay to be in the hope of expecting good things to happen at some point somewhere, and I will.
Yeah. Well, I remain hopeful, because it's the better of the two options, right? Okay. So what are we hopeful about then, JJ? What's getting you going for this year? We're still pretty early in the year, so I think it's still not too late to see what the roadmap looks like, because you seem like you got a lot going on.
Yeah. Oh, so for me personally, and so the year's going to be kind of busy. I have several. Yeah, I have. I'm just really excited about finally. I can write a book in a month without thinking twice about that, or maybe even a week, because I have so much data that comes to me, and there's information and content is never a problem. And I do a lot of solo shows. I've been doing, I did 350 shows in 18 months. I did a 6-day week podcast for a year and a half.
Wow.
And it wasn't all just me, although a lot of it was. But when it comes to, because I got, again, content on different exercise, food, cooking, nutrition, hormones, wellness, psychology, behavior, relationships, astrology, quantum physics, law of attraction, like you name it, and I had it. The only thing I wasn't talking about was money back then, although now I am, because of course that's another component of energy that we need to bring into the conversation. But this book has been, I've written 3 books already, and none of them were life-changing for me. I mean, they were because my first book or whatever, like it's life-changing in that moment when you do it. But I've been evolving into this space of creating something that is new. And this core wound map thing is new. Now it comes from imagotherapy, which is why I had to check in with Harville yesterday to make sure, like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to write the book. And he's like, oh, great. I was like, all right, but it is based on your work. Like I took one exercise from your work and I've did a deep dive with it and expanded upon it. And he's excited for me. So I'd love to have that credibility of the person who created all
cool
this.
Getting that nod from him, you know?
Well, and he's been on my show since 2018. And we've done work with them, and he loves me, and I know he thinks I know my stuff, but this is another level of proving that I know the work, and inside out and backwards, and I've created something new from it. Like I've decided that, okay, this isn't enough, especially when you take a couple's exercise and you make it about the individual. I'm like, well, why? Hold on, you don't have to. It's my one regret. I wish I would have started learning about the work before I had a problem in my marriage at the end, because the work is so powerful for an individual. Forget your relationship for a second. There's so much to learn about yourself and to be the best self you can be, which is what I was always trying to do anyway. But this was the game changer. So what's on the docket this year for me is to write the book, because Harville is 89. So I got to get that book done quick. Yeah. I mean, he's in good health, and I don't fear he's going anywhere anytime soon. But I have
he's not getting younger.
Correct. Well, yeah. He is kind of getting biologically younger, because he's so excited about the passion and the work that they do in the world that he's lit up all the time. He's curious. I think the secret to longevity is curiosity.
I don't disagree there at all.
I really do.
I had a crazy conversation about quantum the other day that once we can get a programmatic grasp on every cell and atom in our body, we'd have a computer that would be able to reorganize that in a reverse order kind of situation. And I was like, see, that makes sense to me. And then I'm like, oh, and then that screws us all. Because you get like 0.1% of the population living at, 40 years old forever, and everybody else dying. Yeah, that's basically how that's going to go down, I think.
I think there's been movies about that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Terminator? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm like, so it's going to be an interesting future either way, right? I mean.
Yeah, it is. So the book is something I actually will start this weekend. I started to write it last year. It was a different book, kind of. And I thought, no, it's too much data, too many exercises, too many how-tos. It has to be life-changing for me, and I want it to really move people. And I want it to change somebody when they read it. I want them to be not just excited about figuring out their core wound map and how it can help them heal and get and learn to be different in the same situation, but and like just unburden themselves. One of my clients in the group doing it right now, she has said for the last 2 days, I feel brand new. She goes, JJ, I'm not. She's like, I know I said it yesterday. I know I wrote your testimonial already, but I feel brand new. She is 60 and or 65. Or no, she could be 70. No, she's not 70. She's somewhere in her 60s. And, but she's like, I feel brand new. And it's been amazing to see because it gets to the point. I'm about getting to the freaking point. I don't want to dance around something. I don't want to waste someone's time. I want to collect data. I want to see it, and then I want to treat it, and I want to like move through it. I don't want to talk about it for 10 years. I don't want to repeat the same patterns for 10 years. I want you to take action. So with that said, I'm also this year, Doug and I are doing a couples retreat. Because my clients asked me, they said, when are you guys going to do a couples retreat? So I said, okay, we'll do it this year. Besides that, I'm also doing another program that came to me. My intuition is very strong. And in my last group event, which was in October, and it was called the Embodied Healing Intensive. And as everyone was discussing, like we were working on an exercise, and I remember like so many women, I got this, like when I get in a live room with people, when I get a download, it's physical. And it came over me and I was like, oh. And I said, oh, God, I thought I was done making programs. I said, there's another program coming. It's called Healing the Mother Wound. And the whole room went, oh. And I was like, okay. I said, but I have too much going on in 2025. It's going to be in 2026. And then 2 weeks, Then in 2 weeks ago in my Qigong class, during the meditation part of it, the download came, you're doing it in this room and you're doing it this year. I was like, oh man. So healing the mother wound will be happening in June.
Sometimes you just have to do that, because I feel like I'm having one of those years so far too, where I'm just like, oh, I'll do this when I'm done. And then like a day later, you're just like, nope, no, too important. And it's like, it looks like ADHD from the outside, but in my mind, I'm like, no, because this Lego fits good here, because then I could put this Lego on top of that. And it kind of all makes sense, but it is a little scattered, like, just because I got a lot going on and I see how that goes.
But we're creators. So when you create, that's your life force. And when you get an idea, it doesn't mean you act on every single idea that you have. I learned that early on as an entrepreneur, because I had ideas go, and if you act on them, then you waste a lot of time and money on things that you don't know if you're going to sell them or if anybody wants them. And it may be a stepping stone to the next thing. So I learned how to manage that and to understand that I can have a good idea. It might come really strong, but I'm going to sit with it for a while. And if every time it keeps being really strong, then okay, then I'll know when the divine timing is to act on it. But so when that came, because I didn't want to do it this year, and then it became clear that I'm going to do it this year. So I love being in this creative space. I don't know if you guys have the same experience with your listeners or with your audience. I went from a personal trainer who was trying to design products for people that I thought they needed. Problem with that is if they haven't said they needed it and they don't want it, they're not going to buy it. So then when I started my podcast and I ended up taking my 6-day-a-week show, and that's how I started a network, is I knew all of the stuff on the show was too specific for one brand. I had to rebrand and separate the 6 days a week into 6 different shows. So I started putting out the ones that had no lead magnets, that had no sale things, no funnels, no products, no services. And the first one was called Spirit, Purpose, and Energy. So I put Spirit, Purpose, Energy out in October of 2016. And by December of 2016, I had people saying to me, I want more. This is changing my life. Where can I get more? And I thought, holy cow, okay, I guess this is the show that I'm going to, I put out all the rest of the shows, but I had nothing to offer them. So I had to start creating things. And the best part, so since end of 2016 until today, I've had this complete co-creation with my audience and my clients where I create things that they need, because they're telling me what they need and they're telling me what they want. And I don't have to try to think about it or guess, and I don't have to shove it down their throats, because it's constant co-creation of, here's where we are. What do you need? Oh, I'll make that. Because this is what do you want this? Yes, I want this. Okay, great. And then where do we go from there? And it's really fun and organic, and it doesn't stress me out. And so that's when I get the download that says they need, and already the people in my programs this year who are already in programs, it's like, oh, I want to do that. I want to do that. I want to do that. I haven't even announced it yet, because they feel strongly about the title and about the work that we're doing. So, but the message to me for anyone listening, hopefully would be, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, is that we're all creators, and that your life force energy is an important aspect of who you are, being creative in the world, expressing yourself, your lower jiao. You guys probably do Chinese medicine, right? Lower jiao, sacral chakra. That's your power center, your sexual organ center. That is your soul, but that is your creative power. And most people who have cancers and other things that are blocked there, it's because they're not letting out their creativity. They're not allowing themselves to step into their zone of genius and to share that with the world.
Yeah, I definitely do not suffer from that, but I know my whole day is spent being like, let's follow that idea. Let's see where that goes. So I'm pretty much the exact, I have yet to learn that lesson, by the way. I just kind of follow them. They don't necessarily last forever, but I follow a lot of ideas.
Well, it's good. And you have a partner to keep you to really in when you get to,
No, I have no control over him. I just let him do whatever. We don't have that kind of partnership. I'm just like, all right, dude.
Tom's like, yeah, well,
I'm gonna go take a nap. You do that.
Yeah. But it is, you're right. It's funny when you can feel yourself just being different in the world. I think that there's a big difference between creative people and people who aren't expressing creativity of any kind. Like, they just show up differently to everyday life, right? Like, it's just a completely different energy presence of, Then being in a room, you could be like, okay, that's this kind of person and this is this guy. Like, it's very easy to see that. And I just don't offer an option to sit there quietly and I'm the guy who's like running around, be like, all right, what's next, guys? What are we gonna do? Like, what do we get? What do we get?
Ideas
into?
are fun, right? Ideas are fun.
Oh, yeah, my favorite thing is I had to write a user manual for myself once, which I actually posted on my website, on my company website, and it's a QR code on the back of my business card. Takes you to this thing, and it's a user manual for me. Like, okay, if you want to exist with me, this is how you do it, right? One of the things is like, I will cancel everything in my day to talk to you about an idea that you're super passionate about, because I can get passionate about almost anything. And then the next line is, if I offer to do that, tell me no, because it's a horrible waste of both of our times and we should not do that. But yes, I could get into that rabbit hole very quickly. Yeah. So.
Well, what are you guys focused on in your, like, with what's your audience craving right now? Where are you with the evolution of your show and your content?
Don't talk to them.
Yeah.
Oh, they're horrible.
I mean, I think what we've sort of gotten into here is really this, and Tom said it earlier, this wounded healer sort of vibe where people are just real deep down whatever path they found, salvation.
I think everyone, and I hate to say this, there's definitely, most of the guests do have that ADHD vibe. Certainly we've had a couple that are full on autistic, and you want to know something about a very specific subject, they're your guy. I mean, that was we had an autism specialist who was autistic, and it was
intense.
Matt, there's just three of us screaming at each other for an hour. It was pretty intense.
Yeah.
It was a great interview.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're trying to explore where our personal health at N equals 1 coalesces with society, and how that influence plays off of each other. And I think that's kind of the thing. Like, we had a kink specialist on, and it turned out like we majority of the time we were talking about consciousness.
Yeah.
We weren't even talking about kink per se.
But I think that goes into what we have discovered over here, is that health is really anything that improves your state of existence, right? Whether it could sometimes mean physical malady, but sometimes it's not.
How do we optimize that? How do we take what we already are doing well further, really carry that to its logical end, if there is a logical end?
And my wife actually has said repeatedly, and I think she is the megaphone of the average Joe in a lot of these health topics, which she goes, it's disappointing that it's so hard to stay on top of. And when I probe her, I said, well, what's hard about it? It's always like, you have a show about it. You spend so much time that you turned it into a show. She's like, I don't have that kind of time to dedicate to learning about, all these different things, right? Whether it be supplements or healing modalities or whatever, and she's completely dead right. This is it's a passion for me. It's a passion for Tom. We do this because it's a joint passion. We're personable guys. It's fun to do. It worked out. But we spend a fuck ton of time on this. You know what I mean?
It's a lot of texting back and forth throughout the day. Like, hey man, you see this article?
I mean, and that's a luxury. Not not everybody can do that. And you look around and you're like, God, what a place of privilege to be able to have this conversation even, right? And I'm constantly aware of that, but that makes me even more motivated to find a way. How do you get people who aren't in that state of privilege where we could have a conversation like this? How do you get that conversation to those people? And that's kind of what this show's trying to explore.
Right. You podcast. That's what you do. So that way when they're driving and or walking or exercising, they could be learning at the same time.
Yeah. And look, I mean, we all got into this. We cut our teeth the same way every other biohacking website did. You listen to the guys who started this a decade and a half ago. And I still geek out to some of that stuff every now and again. I can get real deep with a Huberman Lab episode, but I sent my dad to listen to one of those once, and he was like, the fuck is that? There's no, it's just too much, it's just.
But but I think that's one of the joys of podcasting, right? Matt's was your brother-in-law, right? He's got the number one air traffic controller podcast, and I'm like, wait, there's more than one?
Yeah.
Like, like how many air traffic controllers are there
That's
globally?
exactly right. Yeah.
And
Right.
no, it's like, look, if you're into it, you're really into it.
Right. And he gets, I mean, he's done live episodes at that like hundreds of thousands of people air show and in the Midwest. I mean, it's like he's, I mean, but that's the thing.
Deep.
You follow your passion. Like, look, I would call that air traffic control just as much a health exercise as I would going to the gym. Like that ignites him, which means his brain is working better. His physiology is working better.
It's joyful.
He shows up better for the people around him. He shows up better for his family. Everybody wins in this equation. Mm-hmm. Every single person.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because it's a hard concept to teach people when they are so used to being overwhelmed with details and data of biological nature. And it is true. I mean, how our physiology is affected by, hello, the book is called Biology of Belief. Like that, your biology is affected by your beliefs. End of story. Like you organize, you become organized in your body and your cells and your immunity and how everything works and the energy systems, in your digestion, in your all of it, by the beliefs that you hold, by the emotions, because a belief equals an emotion at the end of the day. It's not just a thought that has no charge to it. Every thought has a charge, and that electrical charge is going to determine whether or not you're in your body is in a field or an energetic field and a state to be of healing or not of healing. And so so the podcast, doing a podcast that you love, no matter what it's about, is absolutely being in a state of allowing out that creativity. It's life-giving. It's chi. It's
Sure.
flowing. It's flowing through. I have a client in this current group right now, and she is, let's see, she likes to hermit. She's been alone a long time. She's got a lot of physical issues. And when I met her at an event, I said, well, have you ever really done any of the emotional work to fix some of this? Because a lot of your physical issues actually come from the emotional aspect. And she's like, well, I've done this, I've done that. And then a month later, she came to my event and then she signed up for my thing. And now we're in it. And I said to her, this is one of the things that you have to understand is that and I explained it, I got more simplified about it. But I said, you have to actually feel more joy. Like our goal right now is for you to sustain, because you're so expecting, based on her core wounds, of ignored, suppressed, and what's the other one? Whatever core wounds. Sorry, I just had this call with them yesterday. Ignored, abandoned, and suppressed. Here's her wounds. Ignored, abandoned, and suppressed. So she has a belief system that says, I expect others to ignore me, abandon me, and that my voice is not worth speaking, so I might as well keep my mouth shut. When you have those kinds of core wound beliefs, you're not going to show up in the world as joyful. You're just not. And your relationships aren't going to work out because you're expecting to be ignored and abandoned, and that to suppress yourself because that's what you're supposed to do. So today, when we were mapping out, we did the rest of her map, and then I gave her tasks of the rewire actions for her. And one of them was to start expressing and just do anything that brought her joy. Because in a day of 24 hours, or let's say she's up for 12 hours, out of 12 hours of awake time, how much of that is spent in a state of joy? Probably not very much.
She gets 12 hours of sleep. That sounds joyful to me.
Can we start there? Is that joyful enough? Because I love that.
Like, that sounds amazing. Sign me up for anything over 6 and I'm ecstatic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be healing in itself. I want to give her the benefit of the doubt of the 12. I'm sure she's up for a lot longer than that.
Yeah,
but
she's probably tossing and turning quite a bit in there too, huh?
Right. Yeah, she's retired, so she doesn't work. She has very loose schedule with very little things on it. So that's why I said 12. I said, let's just go for 12 and really evaluate.
Yeah, that's not healthy in and of itself, right? Like, I mean, you can't live. I mean, that is, people are like, what scares you the most in the world? I'm like, that.
What, retirement?
No, well, retirement.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. I'm never going to do that.
I don't either.
People are like, oh, I can't wait to have nothing on my schedule. I'm like, oh my God, that sounds terrifying. Like, I don't need it to be
That sounds
work.
good for a long weekend.
Yeah.
To be honest. And then I'm like, no, I'm going to start lighting fires.
Yeah, no, I can't. Like I said, it doesn't have to be. People always assume when I say that, though, I mean work. Like, oh, I want to work around the clock. No, fuck that. I don't need to work. But a day where I don't have a fully booked schedule doing something is the day you just fucking pluck me in the ground. Like, I don't, like, I can't, like you said, maybe a long weekend, but I got to be productive. I mean, that could be volunteering. It could be going on a hike. It could be doing literally anything, but it's got to be doing something. you know,
I don't know. I remember I think this is like, so Doug Brackman wrote this book called Driven. We reference him a lot because Matt and I were in this like small group therapy session with him. And he got on me once because I'm like, look, I'm such a lazy piece of shit. I took a nap the other day. I was on the couch for at least 2.5, 3 hours. He goes, what's wrong with you? And he goes, you were tired. You laid down. Lazy people will sit on that couch for 24 hours and not move and not feel guilty about it. And it was really eye-opening. But I think to Matt's point, it's not about, producing something necessarily, but it's about an experience, about doing something meaningful, about having something that engenders more of that similar, that drive. And it could be in a completely different direction than everything else just because it's stimulating to you.
Right. You're experiencing life. You would like to live your life. And retirement
Exactly.
for a lot of people is scary because they don't know how to live life any other way than to work.
Yeah. And actually there was a guy, one of my old coach actually had written a book about this cycle. It's like, look, it's like a clock essentially. And you circle between like 1 and 3 o'clock, I think it was, with the work, right? And you kind of like, and you're supposed to make a full trip around the clock before you come back to make it balanced. And what people do is they get to 3, they realize they're not done, they go back to 1, and they're in this little short
Keep grinding.
loop. What ends up happening is, as soon as they retire, there's like this stat that I didn't know, like a huge amount of people die within like 2 years of retiring because like they get out of that 1-3 thing that's literally keeping them alive. And they let it get so bad that when they get out of it, they literally just, their body gives out. And I'm like, that's fucking awful.
My uncle just celebrated his 99th birthday. He's an engineer. He retired at 93. And he goes, I would have done it sooner, but I wanted to make sure I had stuff planned to do.
Such a typical engineer.
Yeah.
My dad's an engineer. He retired at 65 or 67. He's been retired a long time. He's going to turn 80 this year. Oh, but he is so happy. I mean, but he has plenty to do. My father has plenty to do. He is never bored. He's always doing something in the garden or tinkering around in the garage, or he's always got projects. He's helping out at the church. He's always constantly busy. But he does kind of relax. And it is true. I've had clients actually who, whether it be their husbands and, went from work to dead. But I also think it's not just the physical aspect. I think it's purpose. I think that we stay alive. That's why I talk about Harville. Like he's on a purpose. They have a new mission. Like they have a new mission as of like 2 years ago, he and his wife. And they're on podcasts and they just wrote another book. Like there's no slowing down, and he's on a purpose. And when we're focused on a purpose, all that energy helps to fuel you, right? It helps you to thrive.
Sure.
It's life-giving energy. And, when Tom said, I don't know what retirement is. Yeah, I don't either, because that makes no sense. Because I know that I love creating. I love doing things. I love uncovering things, figuring things out. I love making things. And that idea is so exciting. And really, what would I do? Whatever I can do in retirement, I can do now. I can travel. Like I can still work. I still have ideas. I still can create things. So yeah, retirement will, when I die, I'll retire.
My family's the king of 4-day weekends instead of 7-day vacations. So we'll take a lot more 4-day vacations during the course of the year than most families would take week vacations, because we're like, well, if you time it around an actual 3-day weekend, you're really only taking 1 day off of work. And so like I could do that a lot.
And there's quite a few opportunities throughout the year.
There's a lot of opportunities there. And like, so if you just kind of look at it through that lens, you're like, look, I mean, I don't need like I never need a 2-week. People are like, oh, these Europeans, they do it great. They take 2-week vacations. I'm like, I don't let myself ever get 2-week vacation stressed anymore. Right. I'm like, nope, I got to get out of here. I'll do something and like, I'll bring it down, but I keep it like kind of level-ish, like I'm not saying that's a perfect science, but I try not to go like in these peaks and valleys like I used to be. My 30s were like, I'm riding high or I'm like fucking living in a cardboard box. Like, and even though I wasn't, in my head, I was, right? Like, so, I mean,
I'm still like that now.
Yeah. It's just like, it was, super
I'm
bad,
pushing
man.
50, dude, and that's happening all the time.
But I had to like,
I'm broke. No, dude. Everything's cool. No,
Yeah,
I'm
right.
totally broke.
yeah, I'm 18 and broke. Talk about wounded, man. My grandparents and my parents fucked me over so bad in that category. Like I that's been the hardest thing in the world to get rid of. That like my grandparents, like children of the Depression, you know, like
You're gonna throw that bag out? Yeah. It's garbage.
But now I run
maybe
around.
we need that jar. No.
We just got our house redone last year. We did a renovation, and like right before we got our final certificate of occupancy, the electrician jury rigged a thing so we'd have light, right? And one extension cord from one plug ran 2 floors of my house. That's how small these light bulbs are these days, like in energy wise. And I still run around my house like a fucking lunatic, clicking off light bulbs. Like my kids have every light in the house on, like, and I'm like, you're wasting light. Said nobody ever since like 1980.
I know. Doug made everything LED, and I still do the same thing because I was trained. My father would check all the lights, check all the doors, check all. Anyway,
Who touched the thermostat?
Yeah,
Yep.
before I
Why
go to
is this
bed.
door not completely shut?
yeah.
By the time I go to bed, I've spent 20 minutes running around my house like some fucking lunatic. Like, every single night. It makes no sense whatsoever.
What are you checking the fridge for?
Yeah.
Nothing's new in there. You
Right.
know, like,
Yeah. I mean, come on. But that's totally wrong programming, right? Like, I think we can all agree on that. Like, this is like illogical programming, but we all get we all got our.
I mean,
burdens.
it's put on us, right? It was put on us a long time ago when things weren't as energy efficient, and now we're
But those
stuck
are the
with
funny ones. Like, if you amplify that to stuff that JJ you're talking about, like some of that stuff's not so fun. And,
no, and
it's still
real trauma that you got from your family. Yeah,
and equally as hard to unpack, though.
yeah.
Yes, and I mean, again, this whole core wound exercise and a core wound map makes things a lot simpler. We don't have to guess because it's right here. You take 2 hours to do the exercise and you figure it out. And then anytime you're triggered, you just
How long does it take?
Well, the initial exercise takes, I tell my clients take anywhere from an hour, but my one client told me tonight, she's like, you aren't right. It took me 3 hours. I was like, okay.
Wow.
But that's just to get all the data down. But you do it one time. So it's not like if you're going to a therapy situation with someone new and you have to explain all the things. This is you explaining all the things very specifically, but prompted by questions. So you're not going to go too far out of, you're not going to swirl down.
So without giving away the secret sauce, like what kind of data are you writing down there?
Well, I'm happy to give away the secret sauce. So,
okay.
I mean, because so you start with, the core wound, and anyone can buy this, by the way, the exercise, it's in the workbook, Getting the Love You Want by Harville Hendrix and Helena Kelly Hunt.
Okay.
So, and it's one of the exercises used in imagotherapy when you do imagotherapy. I extracted it from imagotherapy and created something new with it. But the basis of it is this, where you do this core wound exercise. So again, depending on your learning styles, I'm going to come back to astrology. When I did it, because my moon, how I deal with emotion, is in Sag. Sages are truth seekers. And when I saw it, because I'm a truth seeker, when I saw the truth of my pattern, there was a behavior I was doing with my husband at the time. And even as I was getting ready to do it and say it, I would know what you're about to say, he's not going to respond to. It's not going to work. And he would say to me, that doesn't work. And I'd say, I know. Well, I don't know why I can't stop doing it. Something in me just keeps making me doing this. I know it's not going to work, but I don't know why I can't stop it. Anyway, I go and do this exercise. And on one of the pages called Your Childhood Frustrations, when I saw the pattern, it was right there. That's why it was life-changing. Because in that moment, I'm like, oh my God, this goes all the way back to when I was like 6. And because of the awareness, I immediately stopped doing it. That's all I needed. I just needed to see the pattern. And then I saw it and then I stopped doing it. And so because of that, I started to share this with everybody, all my clients. I had workshops around this, but I didn't do anything more with it except just have them do what I did, do the exercise. But again, that's when I learned, that's part of the astrological piece of this, how we learn, how we interpret things. Even though I had a Leo client with like all kinds of Virgo in her, and she would be a minute client. She would cry. She would be like, oh my God, she'd have these awarenesses and then she would never fucking change. Nothing about her habits and patterns ever changed, even though I knew and believed that she really did see things differently. But seeing things differently was not enough to make her make changes. So that's why everyone's learning style is different. It took me a couple of years of doing this with groups to realize that they weren't getting what I got out of it. So I'm like, all right, I gotta do more things with this. I have to do it differently so I can extract learning and see how we can, get them to have this big aha that I had. And that's kind of how I came up with the map. So in the map, so I'm going to fast forward to what I extract from this 8-page exercise. What I extract from it is we want to simplify what the wounds are. So whether you're someone working on, you have a health condition and you can't seem to get past it, even though, because, there's a lot of anger underneath there, or a lot of resentment or rage or fear that you have that you live with, or you keep responding to life in the same way. There are a lot of different core wound names, and you can say I have all these different kinds of wounds, but I want to see a theme. I look at what you write out on this exercise, and we extract the top 3. So let's say, for instance, if you felt abandoned by your mother and abandoned by your father, then abandoned is going to be on the top of the list. We're going to pick 3 of your top 3 core wounds, and I'll give you some examples of core wounds. So I'll just read them from what we worked on the other day, because there's more than just this. But here's my group. My current group, they have neglected, separated, shamed, ignored, abandoned, suppressed, found defective, rejected, isolated, deprived, devalued, used. Okay. So that, and there's more than that.
So hold on a second. These are all wounds as per the name.
But found effective doesn't sound...
Found defective. So like unworthy.
Defective.
Yeah.
Found defective.
Oh, I was like
there's something wrong with you.
No, if you're effective, that seems pretty good.
So,
Yeah.
well, actually, that actually it goes into what I was going to ask. Is this a two-way street? Are there, core positives like
there it could be,
yeah.
but there are, but we don't need to work on those because you got them. They're good. Check. Done.
Got it.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So we're looking at what's stopping you from growing. What's stopping
So actually,
you from...
I think what I would meant more is like if I had like a core, rejected, but I had, I don't know, something else that might help mollify that. Does that treat the therapy of that wound? Because, you've got this other thing to kind of play off of, I guess is where I was going with it.
Or like a coping mechanism or
Right.
like a survival
you've got
tactic.
this good thing. We're going to build on that because we know it'll get rid of this other thing.
Double down on the comedy so you don't have to deal with your fear.
Yeah.
Okay, so but you just said it, Tom. That's a coping mechanism, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But it doesn't actually heal the wound. So,
No.
for instance, the person who had today, so I worked with her, ignore, abandon, and suppressed. So what we do is, I extract this from this thing you write out about your parents, and again, it's not stories. They're prompted, everything about from positive to negative attributes to positive experiences and memories to negative ones. And then, I want to outline what the circuit looks like. So when you get triggered, what happens is your brain has interpreted that you have one of these core wounds has been triggered. So for me, one of mine is devalued. For this client, if she gets triggered, it might be that she has interpreted, and again, it's subconscious. You're not like analyzing in your conscious brain what's going on. You just automatically feel this punch in your gut. And it's because your subconscious has determined and interpreted something in your environment or in your memory triggered one of these wounds. And it happens so fast that you can't control when it happens, but to be aware that it's there and to know it's coming, or to know when it happens, what it is, so you don't overreact to it and keep it going. That's the circuit part. So the circuit goes like this. We identify the top 3 core wounds. Then we look at the sheets to pull out your top 3 like knee-jerk emotional responses to that wound. So for this person, well, let's do somebody else because I have somebody else's map in front of me. So I've got someone whose wounds are abandoned, deprived, and separate. And when those get triggered, she feels hurt, sad, and lonely. And then, so that's the second part of the trigger. So the trigger happens, and then you immediately go to this emotion, strong emotion, and then you react. So what are your reactions? And for her, it's to pretend, to withdraw or sleep, or to perform for love, or to overgive. So when you were mentioning, Tom, about the compensation pattern is part of the trigger. You only do the compensation pattern because you have the wound. You wouldn't do the compensation pattern if you didn't feel this way.
C.
Yeah. Right.
So I established what I call the circuit, and the circuit is so that way when you're in it and you can observe it, you can go, oh, and then you go, oh, that's what it is. Oh, why am I like, oh,
and you
why do I
catch
feel
yourself in it.
Yeah.
Yes. And if you can get to the point, it doesn't take that long. When you can observe it, then you can get into your conscious brain about it and not be so reactive to it. And then you can, at that reaction piece, make the opposite choice. So for this person who withdraws, I would say, instead of withdrawing, because you'll know your behavior when it's happening.
Yeah,
lean
double
in.
down.
Lean in. Ask the question. Ask for clarity. Do not run away. Do not avoid. Do not quit. Lean in. And that would be now that is being reactive. That's using core wounds, and I have to wait to be triggered in order to execute this. And so that wasn't enough for me. So then the next step is understanding that however your parents treated you and your brain interpreted your worth and value in the world through them is also the mirror and the standard for which you also treat yourself. So then I take each one of those core wounds and ask them, okay, so today's client, I asked her, how do you ignore yourself? So we listed 3 ways that she every day ignores herself. And then we went through each one of the core wounds. So then we have this data of how I can start changing my own behavior towards myself in order to heal that. And then at the last section, it's the proactive stuff. It's to say, all right, so if the core wound is ignore, then the opposite of that would be to acknowledge. So how do we acknowledge and not ignore yourself? And I chose a couple different things for her to proactively do every day within our group and outside of our group that she could report back and say that she did. And even though it kind of sounds really logical and really like you can understand this, it's hard. To actually do the opposite of your core wound triggers most people into some kind of fear and tizzy. Like people will cry and be like, I can't do that. I can't do that. Like they'll cut and run because it's so scary in their brain. And that's kind of why I do the program that I do, is because I hold people accountable in a group to helping each other stretch. Harville talked about it on my very first show. He really taught me for the first time. I heard it differently from him about neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity, as we all know, is growing the brain. But you don't grow the brain in a state where it's like, oh yeah, cool. No. You grow the brain through stress. You grow the brain through stretching. So I'm going to tell you a really short story about that will outline neuroplasticity. I think it's so obvious and easy. We took our cats, 2 of my cats, on an RV trip last year. Well, now it's going to be a year and a half ago. And Doug and I had never been in an RV before. I mean, like never slept in one or drove one. So we rented this RV and we drove around for 5 days. And the 2 cats we took with us were excited when they got in the vehicle. And then the sooner it started, they were like, what's happening? And they went into like panic mode and they dove under the covers and they were like, thought they were going to die. They were, shaking and they were traumatized because they didn't understand the stimulus. They'd never been in the situation before. When we stopped the RV for the night and unpacked, of course, they got out and they're like, okay, cool. We're like, this is cool. What's going on? And they're all interested. But every day got better and better. And by the end, they were sitting on my lap while we were driving because their brain had adapted to the stimulus because they understood they weren't going to die at first because it's new. And so that happens when you're trying to heal, when you're trying to rewire a core wound, you're going to feel the tension and resistance to doing the thing that's going to make it better when you first start, because the brain's trying to protect you. It's saying, no, it's scary. Don't do this. You're going to feel bad. Someone's going to, you're going to get your feelings hurt. But you push through it anyway, because we make it very conscious. We make it very specific. We make it very personalized for the person. So that way we're not doing random hard shit. We're just doing hard shit for you. And first, what may be hard for you might not be hard for me. So I have to pick things. We have to come up with things that will push you a little outside your comfort zone. So your brain goes, okay, I didn't die. Cool. So the next time you do it, it's not a big deal until we move the needle. And so for the client I mentioned about her ignore, abandon, ignore, abandon, and suppressed, and she doesn't feel a lot of joy. So I said, well, right. Part of this is going to be you learning how to feel joy. You learning how, and that's going to be uncomfortable for you. It's going to be uncomfortable because you're so used to being ignored, expecting to be abandoned and suppressing all your emotions. You expressing joy while it will feel good in the moment is going to feel scary at first until you learn how to do it. And then you start to like it and you trust it, because for you, trusting it doesn't feel safe because you have this subconscious programming that says, I'm going to be ignored. I'm going to be told to shut up and I'm not valuable and I shouldn't speak and I'm going to be abandoned. So it is mechanical in its application when I look at like this, the data of what we pull from the thing, but it's very stretchy. And most people, while I'm going to write the book about all of this and the concepts about it, I will encourage people to get into a group and to do it, because I've given many people, it's the same thing as having the perfect exercise and diet plan. Doesn't fucking mean you're going to do it. Yeah. Like you have to commit to do it, right? You have to there has to be effort in this, and there has to be accountability of some kind and support that says, we got your back and you're going to be okay. And you're not going to die. And here, please do this.
That's awesome. I it's so funny because as you're saying, like, I'm sitting here nodding my head in agreement because I'm like, this all makes perfect fucking sense. But like, if I was in that chair getting my core wounds like kind of ripped raw and like
I'd be like,
But listen, man, I'll tell you what, I've done past life. I've done regression. I've done hypnotherapy. I've done every fucking thing that I've ever been exposed to that I can actually do. And I've been waiting for this aha moment. And it's like just been really elusive. And then I started realizing, I'm like, am I looking for a moment because I just want to find something so I could blend in with all these other people?
That's what we're programmed to do. Like, you're going to do the past life regression. Oh, you were fucking Joan of Arc. No.
I could have just been Bob.
Yeah, maybe you weren't. Maybe you were just some guy. That's okay too. Maybe your earliest traumatic injury that like kind of messed you up for the rest of your life wasn't on the scale of watching everybody around you get murdered, but it still means it to you. Your body still interprets it. Your brain is still wired that way.
Yeah. But it's still got, I mean, it's still scary, but I guess what makes me even more terrified about this is that I haven't found anything like that. And I've done all these things. I'm like, oh man, I don't know if this tips me over. I don't know. That sounds really, really uncomfortable.
You want the equivalent in psychedelics of an ego death.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Well, I do journeys with people, and I only do them with people that I work with, because I and most of them have done this work, because I want to know what's coming up.
Yeah,
and
you
I
don't
also
want to fuck with that if you don't know these people pretty well.
And because it's not just about coming in and doing a journey and having a transformative experience, it's about how do you change coming out of that? Because if you don't make the changes, you revert back to some of the habits that you had before, because they're pretty strongly programmed. If you're not microdosing before and after to change some of those pathways, and you're not checking your behavior, you have to have all three to marry to really make that immersion stick.
Yeah. Well, the checking your behavior part is the one that I have to challenge myself on literally every time I open my mouth. I'm like, okay, is this what I should be saying? Am I thinking about this as clearly as I could be? Like, and it's something that I definitely have not done for the bulk of my life, but have done largely since I started getting down the more expansive therapies route, psychedelics at all. But I think that gives you the ability to pump the brakes there and check and ask that question and be like, well, is this really where I want to be at? And like, it can happen in microseconds. Like, I mean, it's happening in real time, but there's now a filter I didn't used to have that's like in between me and my mouth.
Well, that sounds like progress.
Well, for sure. Yeah. Anyway, JJ, listen, I could talk to you literally all week about this. I'm like, okay, we should probably
Matt's looking
start
at the clock, and he's like, this is when
no, we got to start aiming at the door, unfortunately, because it's getting to be about that time. But so first of all, I actually might want to talk to you about doing one of these little exercises myself. I think it's a really interesting thought hole to go down, right? Like, I'd love to actually kind of ask these questions a little bit. So yeah, but for everybody else who doesn't have your email, let's give it to them. How do we find you? Where do we want to send people? All that neat stuff.
JJFlizanes.com. That's JJFLI, F as in Frank, FLI, Z as in zebra, AN as in Nancy, ES as in Sam, FLIZANES, JJFlizanes.com. Everything is there.
Yeah.
All my podcasts,
that
all
wasn't
my free
taken
stuff.
when you went to go register it, eh?
No. No, but because when I started my Facebook business page, because I already had a regular Facebook page, I had to go J Flizanes. I'm like, really? Because anyway, it just was annoying that I couldn't use JJ Flizanes for my business page, and because I already had another personal page.
Oh yeah, that's annoying.
No, it wasn't taken. So I invite people I have a show called Nutrition Alternative Medicine. But to be honest, that show has the same content as Spirit, Purpose, and Energy right now. So,
okay.
I have a ton of different shows. Some of them have the same content weekly. I run 5 shows every week. And then many other things. There's lots of freebies. There's things to watch. I've got 2 90-minute webinar classes that are free to watch. One is what is it called? Well, one is 3 reasons why talk therapy is ineffective. And the other one is how emotions affect healing and disease. So your audience may be interested in that. The other one's about three ways to make the fastest ways to make money podcasting. We veered off to coaching on that one, but the other 2 are more health and psychological related. But yeah, and any of the other stuff I did mention quickly, but I didn't put on the page yet. And this wasn't going to be super. It was not going to be out tomorrow. But Doug and I are running a couples retreat, and it's about connecting, communication, and compassion. And it's going to be in Sayulita, Mexico, May 15th through 19th. there are some spots open. You don't have to have any pre-work done to get there. It's going to include a call in the beginning before we all meet and a call about the month after we leave. And I've got a chef and a bartender. It's going to be great organic food, lots of options, keto based stuff, as well as, just general healthy paleo stuff. And anyway, so anyone's looking to connect or reconnect, or you're in a tough space and you want to start this project together, you don't have to have any prior knowledge, but I would recommend listening to my show a few times to make sure you like me before
just to make sure
reach
you're
out.
In the right zip code. Yeah, I could see that being a little bit of a jar if you're not expecting it.
Yeah.
Well, JJ, thank you so much for coming on, man. It was awesome talking to you.
A lot of fun.
We will post everything up and let you know when it's up. But thanks again.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Tom.
All right.
It was a fun talk.
Take care.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Good night.
Be subversive, irreverent.
Health is wealth, but you knew that.
Everybody knows that.
But so is following us on social media at Irreverent Health. And check out our website for more exclusive content at irreverenthealth.com.
Oh, I like this.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Irreverent Health.